Hi, everyone.
Yours. Hi.
Oh, thank you. Oh, first of all, I'm so sorry not to be there in person. I really messed up on what I had to have this morning on the flight, so I'm really sorry about that. I'm so jealous of you. Elizabeth showed me the canals through the window, and I'm so jealous and fed up not to be there. But thank you to everyone for making this all possible, and to Elizabeth and Tamara and publishers for setting it up so quickly for this Zoom. So really glad to be here. And congratulations to Elizabeth on a really beautiful translation. That's so exciting. And so I've been sent your questions, which are excellent questions. Oh my God, it's so great when you're really immersed in a subject, and you get questions that really like you've never had before. So I love that, and there's so much richness in what you're asking that I think we're going to have a lovely hour to go through those together. So first of all, just to check, can everyone hear me okay? Are we all good? Yeah, right at the back as well, all fine? Oh, good. Oh, I wish I was there. It's so lovely to see you all. Um, so I've quickly grouped the questions into five broad subject areas. And so I think what we're going to be looking at this afternoon are, first of all, questions around being, around what we really are and about the understanding of that. And then we've got questions around free will and choice and control and decisions. And then questions about reality, facts, climate change. And then D, where does change come from? What's my role in that? Or well, our role, I mean. And then finally, if we have time, a question related to non-duality and 3P. So let's start with the being, what we are, and the understanding of that. So I'll read out the questions that I've put in that group. And if I'm not doing justice to a question, if I'm not interpreting it right, then feel free to stop me, won't you? And we can adjust. So the questions related to that, I had a video question, which was how can we just be in a state of being? And then I've had questions such as, why is it that one person can see this better than another or live this better than another? What's the use of emotions? Is it a question of age? Do we experience this more clearly as we get older? A very cool question that says, would you say that you are a relationship rather than a person? Awesome. And then the last one that I had in this group was, in the book you mention that we are consciousness, and then in another chapter you say that we're creation. What would be the difference between the two? So let's approach this as a question of what we are, which is really mad, isn't it? Because our assumption of what we are is what we think we are, and so if someone said, "Who are you, Claire?" Who are you? It would be the list of all the things that I attribute to myself, and that becomes a orientation or a lens through which everything is experienced. So the whole reality of me and the whole reality of you and reality, what appears out there, is experienced through what I think and believe is true, what I understand about myself. And what we're considering through the book, through this afternoon, through Elisabeth's work, is that what we really are is a I use the word localization because I can't think of any better word, is a localization of the infinite and absolute. So infinite intelligence, infinite being, infinite love, infinite consciousness, infinite presence, with a localization of that in a temporary, transient, perception created form. And that's what we are. And it's the localization that creates the consistency. You know, I wake up in the same room, I take the same kids to school, I recognize people. It's that localization in a sensory form that creates a regularity, a consistency of experience, of sensual experience. But every single thought and belief attributed to that is a creation of an identity. It's an illusory self. And this is really cool because the illusory self that believes it's controlling everything, it believes it's in charge of decisions, it believes it's the thing that's doing the learning, it believes it's the thing speaking now, moving the hand now. That's not true. That's not real. And this is so exciting. I mean, this is sort of goosebump and butterflies in the stomach stuff, really, because what starts to become clear is that every sorry, it's my daughter just walking up the step. Every thought, every belief, every piece of suffering, every conflict, every anxiety, every depression, every state of resistance, of resentment, is because of that belief in ourselves as a controlling, decision-making, separate individual. And that's not true. That's not what we are. We are the consciousness or the intelligence, the space in which all of that appears. And it appears temporarily in a perception created form, and then it disappears. And then it appears in a different form, and then it changes. And that's what we are. And so the question, how to be in that state of being, as long as it's the individual, as long as it's that illusory sense of control, illusory idea of what we are that is trying to achieve that experience of wholeness, that experience of oneness, all of that activity, all of that trying is taking us further and further away, because it's the mind getting lost in its own creations, in its own ideas, in its own concepts. And it's all of those ideas and concepts that are hiding the underlying space before concepts existed. And so the question, why is it that one person can see or do this better than another? Or is it also a question of age? Do you experience this more as you get older? Really interesting questions, those, because in a sense, we see in children, you know, a newborn baby is entirely the space before concepts, isn't it? It's the space before the idea of a separate individual. And and then at some age around 2 or 3, there starts to be this association with the localization, the localization in this body, and everything that is coming in from the outside is telling that developing brain, this is what you are. You're this. You're a boy, you're a girl, you're good, you're bad, you're cheeky, you're hungry, you're sad, you're tired. It's this sponge brain is grabbing it all this information, and it's starting to form a construct of individuality. But it's all thought created, it's belief created. And what can happen, especially when that developing self is taking place in environments that are physically precarious or are very unstable, that idea of self forms within a context of instability. And so we can spend all of our lives trying to stabilize that concept of self, not realizing that it's the concept itself that's unstable. Behind it, underneath it, is pure peace, is pure wholeness. It's just a construct of mind, and the beingness is simply what we are already. And so children are closer to that knowledge, that conceptual idea of an individual is not formed fully, and so they're free, they're creative, they're present, they're deeply in the moment. They try stuff. They don't have a sense of embarrassment, or they go from crawling to toddling to running, just without any self-reference back of, can I do this? What will people think of me? But as we get older, and as we continue to look through that lens of, I'm an individual, this is what I am, that lens collects more and more information to support the beliefs that are already there. So it becomes a self-fulfilling circle. The more it's believed, the more evidence there is. And the more evidence there is, the more it's believed. But I think what is really interesting, and I think it's the reason why we're all here in this conversation, I wish we were all in the same room, but we're at least in a conversation together, is that there comes a stage where things no longer make sense. That old way of trying to stabilize and secure an identity, of being in battle really with reality, with us, with the idea of self, with our experience, with our emotions, with our mental state, it just doesn't make sense anymore. There's something that's missing. I think for all of us, the reason why we're here is there hasn't been, up until now, maybe really the answer to why this self should feel so incomplete, not at ease, not in flow, not fully present. And as I see it, it's like it is a maturation, not connected to age really, I don't think, but connected to the degree to which the struggle stops making sense, the degree to which it's realized that it's actually the search for stability and security that is maintaining the unrest. And so as I see it, there's 3 stages of this understanding really. There's There's the pre-concept stage of baby, toddler, where there is just presence, there is just intelligence, there is just learning, there is just creation. Then there's the stage of that identity being learned, assimilated, built on, and becoming the lens through which all experience takes place. And then there's a third age, as I see it, in which the understanding, the localization is ready to move beyond that concept of self. And there's a readiness for the mind to settle and to give up the search, and for the mind to settle into the infinite intelligence that life is, the beingness of life. And I think what prevents us moving into that stage is it looks like death. To the identity that looks like death. The identity has struggled for so long to control and keep a grip and to survive and to try to find security, find what it needs, that for that to be given up looks like giving up survival. But actually what we're all realizing here is that dynamic intelligence continues. It doesn't need a concept of self. Dynamic intelligence driving words, driving actions, continually creating, continually, and I love that question in are we more a relationship than a person? Yes. There's that flow, isn't there? That it's like electricity moving from 2 points, that continues. Action continues, and it's none of it has to go via the illusory loop of how am I doing? What does this mean about me? What do they think of me? Am I a failure? Am I a success? Am I living my purpose? It doesn't have to go through any of that. It's just intelligence expressing. Yeah, so these have been wonderful questions. So I'll just check whether, yeah, so the ones I haven't answered yet in that are, what's the use of emotions? It's such a good question, that it seems to me that so as I said at the beginning, that if what we are is a localization of intelligence, of life, of energy in sensory form, it's through that sensory form that everything is experienced. And so it's a perception created form. So it's not objectively real. You know, this body and its perceptions have no objective truth, really, because all of it is perceived. You know, you are my creation right now, and I'm yours. I exist as a different creation for everyone in that room. And it seems that emotions are part of that sensory experience. And I think the usefulness of resistance, particularly, is and the suffering that creates, the tension that comes into the body, that feeling of contraction, is a sign that is it's like a feedback loop into the system that says, momentarily we're living in a constructed idea of how things should be, and so let's drop that and just come back to this presence, just be back in the intelligence of being that we are, come out of the battle, out of the fight, and just be in presence, be witnessing what's happening. So suffering, all suffering, draws us back to presence. And other than that, all other emotions seem to be part of living as a form in a world of other forms. And I think increasingly through this conversation, all emotions become so welcome. So instead of that illusory my concept of self trying to control and have only certain emotions, certain experiences, it becomes the opposite. And actually a lot of people find that as they go deeper into this understanding, there are more intense emotions. They might feel anger where they've never felt anger, for example, because everything starts to become available. There's more and more capacity to have the full breadth of this human experience, which includes all emotions. And they become exquisite, I would say, really, even the ones that we've thought we've never should have, but they become something to really cherish, really honor, without trying to get rid of anything. All experience becomes that way. Yeah, including not being able to get on a flight. So that's free will. Sorry, no, that's being and understanding. Shall I keep going, or would anyone like to ask anything else there?
I'd like to comfort everyone that this is being recorded. So even if you don't get it now, it means you can look back later.
Yeah.
I bet. Subtitles.
Thank you.
So your question to the group was whether you should continue. Should she continue?
Yes.
Yeah, keep going. Okay, good. So we'll move on to our next topic then, which is brilliant topic, free will, control, choice, decisions. And actually, in if anyone ever emails me and the heading is question about real, I can 100% guarantee that the question is going to be about the chapter about control, because it's so intriguing and confronting, and it just doesn't make sense really. But we'll go there anyway. So yeah, so let's so the questions that we've got in this topic are: what role does free will play in relation to potential? What about important decisions a person makes in life? And for example, why share your knowledge in this form? Why did you do that? Very cool. I love that. And then how is it possible that what we call consciousness can contain all kinds of thought and emotions that we're not conscious of? Brilliant. I put that in free will rather than in being, because I think that plays a really important, it's an important element in our understanding of free will. And then the final question in this area was, how far does personal freedom go? Can I freely choose A or B? For example, A would be better for me, but I choose B. Is this a choice? So good, so good, so good. Well, if we consider that there's an apparent mind, body, brain, emotional system, and the potential of that system is what's born as a baby. And so there's a brain that is like an absolute sponge, is designed as a sponge to draw in information continuously and to start to construct rules which then govern behavior. And so that's the developing human, is a learning device that is continually, intimately interacting with every aspect of the sensory world to construct conceptual devices that will organize behavior, make behavior efficient, organize perception. And this is all happening. This is happening from the moment of conception. And it creates an inner world that gives rise to all words, all actions, all behaviors, all decisions, all choices, all preferences. Oh my God. And so that is what we call conditioning. And no one was doing that learning. There was not any person in the baby's brain, there was no self in the baby's brain deciding what was going to be learned, deciding what was going to be believed. It was just happening. And so this whole system is a conditioned program of learned beliefs, learned rules, and as a result of those learned beliefs and rules, there's behavior and actions. And this is why all non-dual teachers, all teachers in spirituality really tend to refer to what we call the person, but they would tend to say it, call it a robot or an entity or a piece of software, a device, a program, a body mind. It's these words. This language is being used to show that everything about us, everything about all our behavior and the way we perceive others is learned. It's programmed in. And yet there's an idea of self within that program that believes it's running the show. But the idea of self is part of the program. It's so cool. So the self identity is an output of learning. It's a result of learning. It's not doing the learning. And this means that the self believes it's in control of everything. It believes it's deciding A or B. It beats itself up if it makes the wrong choices. It self-blames, it blames other people if the wrong choice, if for their actions. But really what we're dealing with is just bits of program walking around. That's all. And the irony is that the more clearly that's seen, the more freedom is revealed. Because as long as there's a idea of self that is claiming this behavior, that is defending it, that's justifying it, that it's beating itself up for it, there's no possibility of change there, because the whole system is sort of locked down in this unquestioned belief structure. There's me, there's my behavior, I'm doing all of this. And I can't even go anywhere near this conversation with that, because how dare you, how dare you say that I'm not in control? How dare you say that I'm not a free person, that I don't have free will? But really, I mean, the logic, we can't even for 1 minute believe that we are an individual self making individual choices when there was no one doing the learning. No one was in charge of any of that. And so the freedom that starts to come is that instead of being lost in the identification with the behavior, the mind settles, and what we really are, which is the witnessing presence, or the space in which all of this arises, notices behavior, hears the words, really. It's really interesting that these words that are being said, the first time they're actually heard is when they're said. And so this witnessing space that I am hears the words, and that's information now. It's information about what's being believed about. So it hears the words and it notices the emotions, notices resistance, notices conflict, and it's all information now. It's making transparent that conditioned program. Now it's available. It was never available before because it was never observed. It was just a hidden, under the sea influence, really a dictator, like a hidden dictator. And now it can be seen. And this is astonishing. This is freedom. And so to the question, would it be better for me, choosing A would be better for me, but I choose B, that just becomes information of a conditioned program that is choosing these particular things. That's all. There's no self-blame in that. There's no confusion in it. It's just information. And the more clearly these choices are seen, the more it starts to become clear whether they are whether they're in alignment with the intelligence that we know ourselves to be, whether they're coherent with love, with thriving, with presence, with openness. And so it's interesting, I think, what can happen often on my courses is that people believe in a way that they're going backwards because they feel more emotion. There's more emotion that they're experiencing, and they're more aware of what their choices are, of what the body's doing, what the actions are. And it also is starting to jar a bit and look like not really what we want to be doing, but it's all just becoming more visible. That's all. And it's in the visibility that things change. So yeah, so that's what we could say in relation to free will. And then this question, how is it possible that what we call consciousness can contain all kinds of thought and emotions that we're not conscious of? It's that. It's the difference between, and I think language can confuse it really, because if we consider the consciousness that we are as being the witnessing presence, that starts to everything that has gone into the programming of that body mind starts to become available within that space. When we're fully identified in with this construct of self, the mind is really it's lost in a version of itself where it believes all there is this surface space of sort of conscious meing, conscious selfing. That's all that is available. But yet underneath that, what's really dictating every thought, every belief, every action is that profound depth of what's been learned. And that starts to become more and more available. Yeah, I really use the word clean, but I really see it like that. It's like a cleaning, really. It's like a spring cleaning in which everything starts to be brought up for air, and in that transparency, it can be really understood and loved. Really, it finds its home. These things all find their home. Yeah, great questions. So that takes us neatly on to see how we are for time. Oh my gosh, onto reality. So the questions we had in relation to reality were: do facts exist, or is everything created? And if everything is illusion, how can we share so many facts? Yeah, those were our main ones. Oh, that actually. Yeah. Reality is really fascinating from this perspective, isn't it? Of how completely transient it is, and also how much agreement there is about it, which I think is really where this question is pointing. Is how, if it's all illusory, if it's all a creation of the mind, then how can we share so many facts? Well, because it's handed down, isn't it? Reality is really, it's handed down to us in so many ways, in terms of what the brain learns as the baby's growing, as the toddler's growing, the teenager, the adult. There's a this like it's a continual learning process, and it's totally influenced. I think this is one of the things that becomes so clear, is how subject the mind is to belief, to believing, and to complete brainwashing, really. That it's the nature of it, which is why I think the thing that is so powerful in this conversation is that it's a direction inwards. It's really that there is nothing here nothing that I'm saying that is there to be just taken without question. It's really for each of us to start more and more, I think, to hear what's being said, and for that inner reflection, that inner witness to start to look at things. Does that align with deep down what I know to be true? Does it align with unconditional love? Does it align to infinite intelligence? And that way we're not looking to a guru or a teacher, or we're not looking to be rescued. We're looking for the mind to return back to sanity. And really sanity would be that ultimately nothing is true, really. No concept can have any objective truth to it. It's just a frame, a convenient frame for information. And then things just start to be information rather than battlegrounds. And life in form starts to become more fluid and more present, because it's only just information. It's not the life and death identification and my stand that it used to be. It's just listening. It's just presence. And that's all of reality, really. I think more and more as we hang out in this, is that anything that isn't really chiming with the unconditional love and intelligence that we know ourselves to be is not really reflecting any truth. And so it's a different navigation. As an individual self, living a life of unquestioned concepts of right and wrong, and success and failure, and life and death, and money and rejection and approval, and me at the center of it all. The only way to navigate is by looking outwards, because we don't get in that moment that how the outside appears is just a mirror of the conditioning of the learned system that has created the self. They're just made of the same stuff. So self and reality, as they appear, are always the same. We don't get that, and so self battles reality, not knowing it's really in a fight with itself. And it's so exhausting and so futile. And the suffering inherent in it is saying, whoa, come back to just what's true, come back to home, over and over again. Yeah, it's a different, so we navigate now from love, I would say, from wholeness, from intelligence, from presence. And the suffering indicates to us when we're not, when we're believing something other than that. Over and over again, it sends us back. Yeah. Yes, good. So that's reality. And then moving on to, oh, sorry, any questions there? Oh, thanks.
I'm just going to do a check-in.
Yeah, please do, yeah.
Ik merk aan mijn hoofd dat het zeg maar 80% vol zit. En ik ken haar. Ik ben al lang met de stof geworsteld. Dus hoe is het met jullie? Hoeveel meer kun je nog hebben? Want zij gaat al door. Het is behoorlijk intens.
Ik weet helemaal wat je zegt.
Is het oké om gewoon af te ronden, wetend dat niet alle vragen beantwoord zijn? Maar,
Het was ook wel een hele mooie afsluitende zin.
het is een mooie afsluitende zin, een goede taster van waar deze vrouw over gaat. Waarom ik haar fantastisch vind, want ze bedenkt het ter plekke. Dit is niet voorbereid, het is gewoon, we sturen er een hoop vragen heen. En there she goes. Sorry about that, Claire.
No, that's fine.
I did a check-in.
I just did a check-in with the group, saying that my cup is like 80% full, and I know you. I've been so I think this was lovely, and you ended in a very beautiful tone, with a very beautiful conclusion. And I'd say that was lovely. Thank you. And we can't be answering all the questions that have been asked, and it's just virtually impossible. And I'm very happy that we recorded this Zoom.
Yeah.
So I send it to everyone, and they can really chew on what you just said, which was enormous. It was an enormous heap, and you outdid yourself. And thank you very much.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Elisabeth. Thank you, everybody. It's been so lovely to see you.
We'll be sending you a box of books.
Good. Thanks, my darling.
Your friends from Amsterdam whenever you come for real.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, everyone. I'll dial off now then. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you for your brilliant questions. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.